Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 295. My name is Brando. With me today, are you in Dallas,
I
Craig?
am. I am in Dallas. Yes, sir.
Okay, because we're obviously doing the Dallas show review today.
Correct.
I left my email open. Sometimes it's something important, and it is not important because you know what? It happened, and this is before we get into the Dallas review. I guess it kind of makes sense. My unplanned segue. I was supposed to interview, and I did interview Jerry Cantrell, but that was supposed to be in episode number 295. Actually, no, what? You were supposed to be episode number 295. You reached out to me to do this Dallas review. Then I had Jerry Cantrell, and then it just got delayed. And then I was like, then it was going to happen the same time you and I were going to connect. And I said, I'm sorry, Craig, but Jerry, I got to bump you. You know, we got to let's do it the day after.
Totally understand. He definitely takes priority over me.
I appreciate you putting your ego aside and doing that. So
Absolutely.
So then I spoke to Jerry, like it happened, like I'm riding high and I'm not teasing it just to be a jerk about that episode coming up, but we spoke about like an upcoming single of his and the video. So they just asked, hey, he hasn't given this information out yet, or this is not publicly known yet. The video hasn't debuted yet. So can you just hold off until September 10th? I said, I can do that. So rather than cut out some cool stuff, he spoke about his new video for his next single. Let's just wait. And I'm like, you know what? Right back in episode number 295, Craig's on standby. So thank you.
I guess I didn't really get bumped by him then, so it's all good.
I know. You were flexible. I appreciate that. Sure. And while I do these reviews, I love this. This is why I almost kick myself if I could physically do it, that I didn't do these extended fan reviews earlier. If we did the fan obsessions, and maybe that'll be a short segment and we can plan that. That can happen whenever. But the review, you kind of want it to be as timely as possible.
Sure.
I guess. At some point, we'll get Roy Orbison Jr. to do the LA review. He wants to do that. We'll see if he brings on his Roy 3, who I think is like 5 years old. I would want a 5-year-old to talk about GN'R on the podcast.
That'd be cool.
Him and I would bond over SpongeBob and hopefully something. But I've seen, people, it's been happened a lot of work. I'm lucky I get to work from home, but you're taking time out of your day from work, which is just awesome. And it means a lot to me that you reached out on Twitter, and a good opportunity to promote the new Twitter at the AFD podcast. But you reached out on Twitter and I was like, absolutely, man. So all that said, thank you, Craig from Dallas.
Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it. It's like I said beforehand, I don't get too many opportunities to speak to someone that's as big of a fan as some of us are out there. So this is good.
Yeah, you were telling me that off air, and we'll give a mention to Phil. And I want to make sure, because I didn't as promote it properly last time, because Phil, when he reached out to me on Instagram, and I go to look at his page, and I'm like, he's got like a 200,000 followers, but Las Vegas Phil, because he's a foodie and he has all this delicious food up there. So I'll properly promote him this time. Las Vegas Phil with FILL, Philip Zhang on Instagram. He has like almost 200,000 followers. But you were listening to him, and he said something that was, I can identify with it. You obviously identify with it. Many of the people who are gravitated towards this podcast do. Where do you go to talk about Guns N' Roses? Not all your friends and family are as obsessed as we are, right?
Right.
So I appreciate. I'm glad I can give you this outlet and you guys this outlet.
Yeah. Thank you. No, this is great. And I was actually at the show, the Las Vegas show as well. So it was really interesting to hear their perspectives. And I don't remember if it was Phil or the other guy that was talking about the challenges of getting in and getting to the pit. That was a nightmare. So I was fortunate to know that I wasn't the only guy that struggled with that. But very cool.
Yeah. And I think what we all took, because I'm just a fan who happens to work in radio and I happen to have started this podcast. I tell, my trials and tribulations of just going to a show and seating and all the stuff that we all identify with. So I think that's what's been fun about the review, not just for the people who come on the podcast, but the people who listen. It's like, I've been to that. I know what he's talking about, especially if you were there at the same show. Right. But today, Dallas, I think the only time I've been physically in Dallas was in the airport.
Mhm.
I felt like I tweeted at Del James the other, and he liked my tweet. I said, "I hope you flipped off every Cowboys fan you saw when you were down there." So, yeah.
Hey, that's okay. I'm not really from Dallas. I've lived here for 20 years. I'm actually from Buffalo, New York, so I'm a huge Bills fan. So I am not a Cowboys fan.
Okay, okay, yeah, the only real New York team, by
That's
the
true.
way.
Yeah, that's absolutely 100% correct.
Yeah, that's great. So I love that. So at least you've been in Dallas for quite some time, but I spoke about it on the podcast. My first time in Texas was right before the pandemic, going to Austin City Limits to see GNR and a bunch of other, mainly GNR, but it was cool to see like Billie Eilish and
Mhm.
uh what was it, the Rack on Tours. That was pretty. I hadn't seen Jack White before, so that was kind of cool.
Mhm.
But it was oh yeah, and then because all I brought were like my basketball jerseys, which I wear all the time. And now is the time in Texas where it's like 50 degrees the whole weekend.
Which is rare in October.
Yeah, 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 I know. So fuck me, right?
Right.
So so you've been in Dallas for a while. So you mentioned going to Vegas. Do you normally travel? Do you normally see the shows in and around where you are?
So in preparation, I kind of went back and listed all the shows that I've been to, and very few of them have been local, right? So I think I've seen Guns N' Roses three times in Dallas out of all the times that I've seen them. And, I've probably seen them the most in Las Vegas. It's my favorite city. And they, generally either do a really big show or multiple nights. So it kind of makes it worth it. And then just some of my friends from home, we'll make it a once or twice time a year where we'll meet at one of the concerts when it works out that way. So, I've seen them three times in Dallas, seen them, the pre-reunion, some at the stadium when they came back, and then on this Lifetime tour, and then I just saw them obviously on Wednesday night. So I like to kind of get out a little bit and see them in different places.
Do you normally, because I've been talking to a lot of fans thus far that go by themselves. Do you bring, I know you said you meet up with friends, but do you have a concert buddy at all?
I do actually. So I've only been to one show by myself, and that was in Houston on the On This Lifetime tour. But I do have a buddy from home. His name is Craig. Also, we grew up together. Grew up huge Guns N' Roses fan. So he's usually the guy that will meet me in Vegas, as he did this past weekend. And then he's one of the ones that will travel to the other sites to see it. He doesn't generally come to Dallas because, quite honestly, Dallas isn't a whole lot of fun for somebody from out of town. But he's my buddy that we travel to see the shows with. I got another buddy, Scotty G. Shout out to him. He'll always travel to shows with us as well. But then locally, I got one guy that he's not obsessed, right? Like he likes them. He's a fan. He knows their songs. Maybe knows Appetite, but my buddy Gorman, he goes with me around here and always has a good time as well. So those are really the guys that I tend to go to these shows with.
Do you make homemade DIY shirts with your other buddy Craig, like Craig and R, anything like
No, we haven't done that yet, but it's still time. You never know.
that? Very cool. But you said something interesting, of course, that someone from out of town may not enjoy a Dallas show. So I guess just take us through that day with these tickets that you bought pre-pandemic. Did you buy them close to the show? Because that obviously can vary. Like for me, I held on to my New Jersey tickets, but the Hershey show I bought, when they went on sale the second time around.
Yeah, so they originally were supposed to play at our new baseball stadium for the original 2020 date. That got straight up canceled. Okay. And then they kind of came out with that second wave of shows and they moved the venue from the baseball field to the arena. And, they had given us a refund and then they all went on sale. So I had to, rebuy my seats. So I bought those seats, I want to say probably early June, and asked my buddy Gorman that I go to the shows locally with. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm in. Haven't seen him in a couple of years, so I'm 100% in. So we had to get new tickets. Normally I'm in the pit, but since I just saw him in the pit last Friday, we had side stage on Slash. So they were really good seats. We kind of see him coming out. So it was pretty cool.
Do you like to vary? Or you're just not somebody who likes to be in the pit all the time or seats? You like different perspectives?
So personally, I'd take the pit all the time if I could, but it's, I don't like to get up close, right? I'm older, I'm 47, so I don't want to be scrunched amongst people, especially during the pandemic. But like I said, my buddy Gorman, he's not like a rabid fan, right? So he likes to sit back, relax, enjoy the show a little bit, get some beer. So, he and I usually sit in seats, and since he's the guy that I go with locally, that's what we did for this show.
I appreciate you making that sacrifice. You know, you're you're a friend, and I
Yeah.
get that. You know, it's yeah. I think it was Phil. It was so funny when he was talking about how he can't even go with a casual fan because some people it's like a religious experience, and if you don't get it, I mean, it's like whoa. You know what are you doing?
Yeah.
But I'm grateful. I think we're both grateful. I've accepted my fiance's Dave Matthews let's just call it fandom. I'm not gonna make fun of it. Her fandom, as she's, I think today is the first day, 3 days in a row for her to see Dave Matthews at the Gorge, and
Mhm.
she goes crazy when I saw it when the pandemic first hit, and it was just like live. All the bands are live streaming. There's no concerts and everything. Every Wednesday, I think I complained about it at the time because, I mean, every Wednesday I had to sit in a Dave Matthews concert in my living room because they would do a live stream
Wow.
on Nugs TV, whatever, and she would be dancing in the living room for like 5 hours every Wednesday. And but then
Week, huh?
she'd see me with Guns N' Roses rocking out, singing along to every single word, whether it's in the car, whether it's the shows we've been to. So we've both seen, you know, our full fandom on
Mhm.
peak or whatever the kids are saying. So uh it's okay. We accept our craziness when we go to shows, but
That's
uh
right.
yeah, so that's also something to consider that people can relate to, I'm sure,
Mhm.
like who they go with, who their concert friends are.
Yeah.
Uh, so when you were like, how was the weather in Dallas? It sounds like such a silly question, but how is the atmosphere? How was the day in Dallas?
Yeah, typical beginning of September,
Yeah.
late summer day, 100 degrees, bright sunshine. I did cut out of work a little bit early to, I had to drop my daughter off at the babysitter, go to my buddy's house, Uber down to the arena because I live about 45 minutes from the arena. But just a perfect afternoon. Picked it up, grabbed a couple of beers, went over to Hooters to have some food, and walked up to the arena. Missed Wolfgang Van Halen because there's a little bit of Dallas is a very late arriving crowd, and everybody's arriving at about the same time. So we missed Wolfgang Van Halen, but got to our seats, got a little bit of merch, grabbed a couple drinks, sat down, and they went on roughly the same time they went on in Vegas. So I had a better understanding of when they were going to start. And one thing I didn't know in Vegas was their intro was shortened. Right, it used to be like I used to consider it like the 10-minute warning when the animation started. We used to have 10 minutes to get your seats and use the restroom, whatever. Now it's down to like 3-4 minutes. So once that started, I knew we had to be in our seats. So it was just a great day, good afternoon. Didn't have any troubles getting down there. It was a pretty smooth process.
That's good to hear because we were talking off air. I think we were talking about this part of it all off air. My only time in no, I said it recently. See, I've been having so many episodes
Yeah.
lately. I'm like, what conversations with what person? So forgive me. That when my time in Texas in Austin, it was like 50 degrees that whole weekend. I came down with all my basketball jerseys I was gonna wear, my Guns N' Roses tank tops and cutoffs, and it was like freezing the whole weekend. So that's why I was just curious, and especially since we've had some reports of heat exhaustion and
Mhm.
passing people water. So I was just curious about like what the ambiance in the day that everyone everything what it was like. And it's interesting that you mentioned everyone's late in Dallas and arriving at the same time. I was worried about that at Hershey Park. My first experience there for a concert, and it was just smooth sailing up until right there. And I felt like I missed the first 2-3 songs of Wolfgang's performance because
Mhm.
of that. But you've learned, and this has kind of been a running joke with people who have done these reviews. The GNR is not your mom and dad's GNR. That they come on early, the early bird special, and there are people who are not at the show yet or just finding their seats. You were ready, but did you find that other people were like, wait, what? Like, what's going on? Or were
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
ready?
So where we sat, I mean, I think the people in the pit are generally the crazier, more obsessed fans, right? They know the set list, they know what time they're going on, they know. And then you get onto the side, Dallas, I wouldn't say I was in the section of the most passionate fans, right? So they're all sitting there talking, and I hear people, oh, they're not going to come on till midnight. I remember I saw them in '91. I'm like, I didn't say anything. I'm just like, okay. And to that point, it was about half full when the lights started going down, and everyone's like surprised. And I'm like, I said to the couple next to us, said they'll go on about 8:15, 8:20. And they're like, really? You think so? I said, yeah, I just saw them last Friday and, I read the reviews, but it seemed like a very casual crowd, right? They're probably pretty happy to go to see a concert because there haven't been a whole lot of big ones here, especially rock metal shows. And they all seemed a little bit surprised that they're going on that early.
It's really quite amazing, and something that I know I have to take a step back from, and maybe you have to do that too, Greg, do this too, that it feels like we're the majority of Guns N' Roses fans because we're on social media, we know the set list, we're talking, Chinese Democracy, we know about Hard School coming out. Go to the concerts. The majority are not that. They haven't seen 1991. Yeah, Axel, he's still a jerk. It's like, no.
Yeah, it's different now.
Yeah, he's lying down on top of pianos,
He did do that. Yeah.
It's smiling at Slash. Like, it's just a completely different band, and it's just pay attention. I mean, it's great you're going to the show and you want to see Guns N' Roses, but it just sucks that if you're gonna miss any of the show, and it's just great that it's just ironic that Guns N' Roses' old reputation precedes them, and it's just like, how do they erase that? They're trying to. I don't know if they can. I don't know if
they can because a lot of, again, if you're not I don't want to say obsessed because that's really the wrong word, but if you're not into them and follow them to the level that we do, you probably wouldn't know. You know what I mean? You probably wouldn't know unless somebody told you. So I get it, but I was happy to be there and see them come up in the side stage. That's probably the first time I've seen that. They wait back there for a couple of minutes, so it was cool, but very well attended. I got to add, the arena was pretty full. I don't know if it's quite a sellout, but all three levels were full. Really happy to see that they had a really big crowd there.
Awesome, because I think that's been the case where it's not a GNR problem. It's a concert problem that they are doing really well despite everything. They really are doing a great job. And I'll say this, I'll tease the next episode, which I know it's already in the can, the Velveteers that opened up for Guns N' Roses in Denver. And we spoke about the process, not just like about them finding out about, opening up for GNR and just the fun part of it, but the COVID process, the protocol, the backstage stuff. So it's just GNR is doing it right. And they get it. They really do get it. They want to get through this tour safely. Absolutely. And they want the fans to be safe. And I've seen signs. I mean, I kind of know the answer. How is the COVID protocol in Dallas? Were people adhering to that? I didn't think so.
So it was kind of hit or miss. They made you put it on when you went inside. I tried to keep mine on when I wasn't actively drinking. That's the rule, right? If you're not actively eating or drinking, you have to have it on. Virtually impossible to enforce. There were people around me that wore masks the entire time. Looked down in the pit because we're fairly close to the pit. Some people had them on, but it's really hard it's hard to police it, number one, and number two, when you're singing and dancing and screaming and a lot of people drinking, it makes it even harder. So
it does. And I think what needs to get across, because some people are like, oh, I can get COVID can't get me when I'm eating, or when that's not what it's about. It's all about minimizing risk. That's what it's all about. Just trying to be as safe as possible and do what you can to do your part. So, I mean, the band promotes that. So, and I promote it. I want to go to concerts normally and not deal with all this shit. Don't we all?
Yeah, man, everybody does. But this was as close to normal these last two shows as it's my third and fourth concert since concerts have been back, and these last two felt as close to normal as possible. All things considered.
Cool. So what were you looking forward to as somebody who's kind of a seasoned vet with going to GNR shows, as somebody who knows the set list? Are there certain songs you look forward to? Let me know some of what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, so a couple things along those lines. There are your favorite songs that you have that you really look forward to regardless. The lure, I'll say, of potentially hearing Hard School or something that they haven't played. Although you get let down quite a bit because they don't generally do too much flipping of the set list anymore. The fact that you don't want to miss it, right? Just in case that were to be the one, time that it happens. Highlights for me personally. I love I love the way the show opens up with "It's So Easy" and Mr. Brownstone. I can't say that I'm as wild about "Sweet Child of Mine" and "Paradise City" because I've heard them so many times, but "Estranged" is always great. Love "Night Train" live. Really do like "Madagascar" since they put that back into the set. That I think is a really good song. Love "Don't Cry" live. And then of course November Rain and all the songs. You Could Be Mine. But I probably look the most forward to Rocket Queen. That's probably the song that's probably my favorite song. Definitely off that album, it's my favorite song. So those are some highlights that I always look forward to.
Nice, nice. And see, we talk about the set list and a couple funny things, interesting things there. When I went to Jersey and they played Absurd for the second time, that's when my former co-host, current friend Scotto, went to the bathroom. So he missed it. So good job, Ian. You missed new Guns N' Roses music live. I mean, never happen again. And I've seen 2 shows thus far. And out of all the shows I've seen, I've only been, I say only because I've been talking to fans who've been to triple digits. I don't know if I've seen Madagascar. I maybe seen Don't Cry. I've only been to 7 shows, but 7 is still a lot to see. So I mean, the set list, it does change. And going back to before, how we are not the, we don't want to say obsessed, the diehards. When Sweet Child of Mine and Paradise City, yeah, you know what? I don't need to hear, me personally. I mean, I love those songs, but if they replace them with Shackler's Revenge and
I'd be fine with that.
Bad Apple,
99% there that are there to see those songs wouldn't be. So
the eruption that happens when those songs go on, all the phones going up, it's just, that's it. Those songs will never, ever, ever go away. So and I don't think that they should. It's just kind of one of those things you have to realize. And yeah, it would be awesome if they did a completely new set list. And
sure,
but there would be fans that would leave being like, what the fuck was that? They didn't play this, they didn't play that. And that's why they get so many good reviews. They play the hits, and I think they're doing the best. They are. We may not think that they are. Their communication may be questionable at times, but I think they're doing the best to please the diehards with, they do
a lot of the cuts. I mean, I had this conversation with my buddies, and it's like a couple of things. So number one, as this tour's gone on, it's gotten a little bit longer, right? So the shows at the very beginning were a little bit shorter. I think I saw one song encore a couple of nights. And my buddy Scott went to actually Detroit and kind of felt a little bit ripped off, I think he said, and then we talked about it. I said, hey, listen, we're kind of spoiled here, right? We were going to shows that were 3.5, almost 4 hours long, playing 34 songs. And that's awesome. And because we love that stuff. But the average fan, A, that's too long if you're not like into it. And right. B, a 25 song set is still a really good set. And I said, I think we're just spoiled, right? We really got spoiled with 30 plus song set list. So, it's still a great show. It was a much more tolerable length of time, I think, for my buddy. It's not a diehard. So, it was a good show, but the set list, I wish they would, I don't want to talk too much about the set list as far as what I would want and not want, but
this is your review. You have your opinions. This is your forum to do so.
Yeah, if they could cut out the covers, I mean, just, and that's just my thing. I think the majority of diehards would be okay if the covers disappeared and you threw in a couple of other songs that they don't play on a regular basis. I think that'd be my only wish.
I think that might be the most common agreed upon thing among Guns N' Roses fans are the covers. But just like Paradise City and Sweet Child of Mine, Knocking on Heaven's Door and Live and Let Die, those covers, they're not going anywhere because so many people, not us obviously, and the younger generation, associate those songs with Guns N' Roses. Not Bob Dylan or Paul McCartney, which seems like what? But you got to think, the next generation that they know Guns N' Roses, but they're not going to know Bob Dylan like that. It's just that's just the way it is. But yeah, I'm like, I saw the Seeker in the set list again. I'm like, why? I like, he does a great version. He really, really does. I just don't know why that's such a consistent song in the set list when it's not a tribute to, it's Wichita Lineman. I think I actually love that it's a cover. That's a cover. and I've said this personally, I would love it on the record. I don't mind if they keep it. To me, it's just it taught me about the see
Mhm.
a younger person. I know Glenn Campbell's stuff like that. I knew of
Mhm.
it.
Right.
Glenn Campbell's version is great, but I mean the GNR version to me it feels like Lies GNR.
It
So
does.
so everyone has their opinion with it all, but yeah, when you have other songs and they have a ton of songs on their alt set list,
Totally.
which is, and I'm sorry, at this point, enough people have posted it that it's confirmed. It's not like at the early on before the tour, we may see these leaked set lists. Is this real? Is that not real?
Yeah.
I think there was one that came out. It's like absurd. We had never heard that name before.
Yeah.
That's fake. That's fake. It's not fake. There was a song. It was Silkworms. And now it's
Yep.
absurd.
Yeah.
And before I forget to say, you'll appreciate this, Craig. And I'm not going to give too many specifics about it, but I know somebody who is in like the Mammoth camp. Because it goes to say the Mammoth camp, who is aware of the set list and is aware of Hard School. He's like he knows. He's like they're gonna, they've sound checked it. They may have. There was talks about debuting it before the tour, but I don't know why it didn't happen. So I mean that's I don't know. It's gonna happen at some point. I just don't know when with this freaking band. So yeah, hopefully one day they'll replace the Seeker with Hard School, and
That'd
maybe
be nice.
maybe that's just been a placeholder. Maybe that's what it is. They're seeking for new music, and that's what
Well,
it's.
well, I got a little bit excited about the show being on a Wednesday night, which is normally not an ideal night for a concert. But they generally, when they slip a new song in, if you look at history of set lists, they generally do it on like a Wednesday night, right? Or they don't do it in like a big setting. They'll slip it in on a Wednesday night. A couple years ago, 2019, I missed the Oklahoma City show, which is about a 2.5, 3 hour drive for me. It was weather related, and then that was the night they played Locomotive, and I've been kicking myself since then because that'd be a great song. I've never seen it live, so I was kind of hoping, hey, it's a Wednesday night. Is this going to be the night Hard School comes out? But I wasn't disappointed because I've never heard it live, but I was hopeful, right, that it was going to happen.
Isn't it nice that we have kind of like legitimate hope now, and there is some sort of like mystery about going to these shows.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, it's going to be the same thing. We know it's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The foundation, the skeleton is still there. What GNR does and what they do well, but
Mm-hmm.
there is still that wiggle room to be like, oh wow, okay, something's going to happen here. I mean, I went to a show where Axel's like, we're going to release a new song at midnight. Like, what?
Yeah.
What did I just hear? So speaking of that new song,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think about Absurd? Because you've seen it a few times live at this point,
Yeah.
right?
Hey, I can't say I love it, but what I will say about it is, it's nice. I'd much rather have a new song that I don't love. I'm getting to love it, right? I like it live much better than what I've heard the iTunes or whatever version. I think it's nice to have a new song from them, even if they took an older song and made it, fit today's band. I think that's cool. I will say that Axel is super into that song when he's singing it. He probably showed the most emotion and passion while singing Absurd, which was cool to see. He had, they're not the world's most dangerous band anymore. They're a great band, but he had I won't say rage, but you know how he gets into it. And he was so into Absurd, which made me like it that much more. There's some people around us a little bit turned off by the lyrical content, but I get it, but I don't love the song, but I don't hate it. I'd rather have Shadow of Your Love in there instead of Absurd, but it's a new song and I'm happy to have it. I'll just put it that way. I'm happy to have it.
I know
it's growing on me. I'll say that it's growing on me.
I gotcha. And yeah, even for me with the lyrical content, and I've seen all 3 Human Centipedes multiple times. So it's like, I have a sick mind.
Yeah.
That's not a song I want to pussy for maggots. I feel, I don't know. That's it's a bedroom word. That's when but I didn't like, I've said this before. I didn't like Silkworms, but I don't know what they did the first time. And I actually like it. I've had friends go, like my actual friends, you don't really like that song. You're just saying that for the podcast. No, I like it. I don't know what it is. It's something whatever Slash did
Mhm.
to it, and that scream that Axel does, and yeah, especially seeing it live and seeing how passionate it is about it. I I like it. I mean, is it November Rain? Is it even Night Train? No, I don't think it needs to be though. I think it just kind of fits their discography,
Yeah.
and I'm happy for it to be part of the GNR rotation. That's kind of how
Me too.
I
And like I said, it is growing on me, right? Like the first time I heard it, I'm like, I don't know about all this, but it's growing on me. And just to see how passionate he was about the song made me more into it. So
growing on you like a maggot.
yeah, right.
Unbelievable. It's too funny. So anything, because we talked about your highlights. We talked about the crowd. I mean, anything that you saw that maybe that stood out? Because some of us have spoken about. Did you see any fights break out or anything interesting you saw on the stage? Communication with the band. Anything
Um,
perhaps you stood out we didn't cover?
yeah, definitely no fights. It was, Dallas is well, I don't think they're the most passionate group about anything, right? Whether it's a sports team or their music, right? They're there to be seen in a lot of cases. Because I said it was probably a 90% casual fan base. They got really excited when the hits came on. Didn't see any fights. Didn't see anything like that. As far as communication on the stage, the first thing I'll just say about the band themselves on the stage, Axel must have been in a great mood that night. He was chatty. He looked like he was having fun. He looked like he was having fun. And at the beginning when they're kind of getting started, my buddy said, he's like, "Wow, they don't have much chemistry on stage." I said, "Oh, they will. They're just getting their sound right, And then I started leaning on Slash, and he's running around, and he got more active as the show went on. But the chemistry looks perfectly fine to me. I thought they sounded great. And again, I just saw him last Friday, right? So Axel wasn't nearly as chatty with the crowd in Vegas as he was with Dallas's crowd. He seemed happy to be there. Looked like he was genuinely having fun, which is cool to see, rather than somebody going through the motions. Not that he ever has, but I've seen bands that you just feel like,
Sure.
hey, I'm there to occupy my requirement of a 90-minute set and get the heck out of here. So it was a good set. And I thought, you mentioned, I don't remember if it was on air or beforehand, about Axel laying on the piano, waiting for Slash to finish the solo. That was really cool. That was kind of funny.
I love people just showing like gifts of it, and I don't know. It's just wow. What world are we in that this is where we're at?
Right.
And then everyone's making the joke. Axel's, he's lying in the pose. Paint me like one of your French girls. Paint me.
Right.
But they're to those people, like, yeah, they're making a boatload of money, but that's not what it's all about, and you
Mhm.
can't fake that. You can't
No.
fake that at all. So how did you say it before? How many shows exactly you've been to, numbers
I
wise?
I tallied it up last night. I've been to 21. I feel like I'm leaving like one or two out of there over the years, but my first one, kind of going back through my history, told you already, I'm 47. So growing up, I was a huge fan, and I kind of pride myself in the fact that I had Appetite for Destruction before Sweet Child of Mine came out. So I was the kid that was I was grounded a lot, for starters. So I used to watch Headbangers Ball on the weekends. And I
Nice.
remember seeing Welcome to the Jungle and being like, man, this is way different than anything that was going on. Like, I actually had all the teased hair and all that stuff, but the music sounded great. So 21 shows. First one that I saw was them and Metallica on the co-headlining tour in 92. I was graduating from high school that year. I was so excited about it. A little bit disappointed in that one. I don't think, in retrospect, knowing what we know now, probably not the best time within the band. Metallica actually kind of blew them off the stage that night, and we waited till like 12:30 in the morning for them to even start. So Metallica went on at like 6 to 8:39, and then there's like 3 hours. It just wasn't a great, overall. Then I saw him Skin and Bones tour in Hamilton, Ontario, in '93, which was a really good show. I kind of went through and highlighted my three favorite shows, and that was probably number two of all time. A reason being, they did a little acoustic set in the middle of the show where they brought out couches and they did 4 or 5 songs acoustically. And I just remember it's in Canada, and there was a lot of strip clubs in Canada, and they had all these strippers bringing them drinks on trays and stuff. So it was really cool. Saw some songs that I hadn't heard before. So that was really cool. And then I saw them. Those were the 2 times with the somewhat original lineup. Gilby and Matt Sorum were in the band at that point, so I never saw the original 5. And then, the next time I saw Axel was 2010. when they came back and did a Canadian tour. And I was living in Dallas at the time, and I flew up to Hamilton with my buddy Craig, and we went to that show, and it was kind of still the same thing, right? Sebastian Bach opened, and then there was like a 3-hour wait before they came on. And, I didn't appreciate it at the time. It was 2010, Chinese Democracy had been out, but I didn't appreciate Chinese Democracy the way back then that I do today. I have a much greater affinity for it. And when I went back and looked at that set list, it was very heavily Chinese Democracy. So they played stuff like Shackler's Revenge and Street of Dreams and things that you don't hear all the time. Of course, Better was on there and all the ones that they've done. But it was a good show. It was, again, the wait at that point. And then I saw them, Dallas once. Then they did the 2 residencies in Vegas and saw them a couple of times each time for that. And then, I've seen them 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13. This is my 13th show since the reunion. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
You've seen, legendary shows. While the Metallica one may not have been the best one, to say that you were there and you experienced that,
Sure.
I don't know, you wouldn't want to relive it, but at least you said you were there.
Yeah.
And I've just seen videos of those couch performances, acoustic. That's something I would love to see now. That's why I think
cool.
I think that's why I'm so affectionate towards Wichita Lineman. It just kind of reminds me of an era I didn't see, and what I would like to see. So
that would have been a song that they would have done in the couch had they been performing
right?
back then, for sure.
Sure. So where would this show rank for you? This Dallas show?
Yeah, and again, I don't think I've ever been to a bad show, right? So I want to, and it's really hard to say. I'd say it was probably right in the middle, right? It was again, I already mentioned being a little bit spoiled by previous sets, so I'd say it's probably bottom 50%. But that doesn't mean by any stretch of imagination that was a bad show. It just, it was what I expected. It was great, sounded great, had a great time, but it didn't stand out in the way that some of the others would have in the past. Like, I'll just say that my number one show was the Las Vegas first night when they got back together, and the intensity. I don't remember if you were there or not. Were you at that show, Brandon? No. The intensity and anticipation of that night was just crazy in the arena. Not to mention, we had gotten a tweet like 5 hours before the show that Axl had broken his foot. And then everybody's thinking, oh gosh, is he going to show up? Because they're still thinking old Axl, that he came out in the throne. And we didn't know the set list, right? So those 3 elements, like being the first night available to the public, it was just awesome. I didn't go until midnight, but that's fine. It was Vegas, and it was just awesome. It was just awesome. And not to say that it was a bad show in Dallas, because it wasn't, but just the not knowing, right, what song's coming up next. Now you can kind of plan a little bit on when you might need to use the restroom or whatever the case might be. So, but it was a good show. I'd say, middle of the pack, right? Nothing stood out for me.
That makes sense. And that's, you set a high bar with all these other shows. So just by default, it is.
Exactly.
So I completely get what you're saying. So then let me ask this: with all your travels and you said you have a GN'R shirt on right now. I can't see it completely.
Yeah, this is just the one I could sneak in under my work shirt, so they didn't, I didn't know what I was doing today. So this is an old one. I actually got this tattoo, probably like 10 years ago. And then when the reunion happened, I got the bullet and the guns, the typical logo that you see on the T-shirt, front of T-shirts. Okay.
And for our podcast friends, that's just that's the skull face with the top hat and the 2 guns behind it. Yep. And the Guns-N' Roses banner in yellow across it, which is great. Yeah, very cool.
Illusions.
Yeah, I'm the same way. When I used to go into work, I think that's why I'm just like in the house. It's always, if I put the air conditioner on, it's just you hear it. So that's why I'm always here in a basketball jersey.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank God I have tattoos, so I don't look like I'm like naked sitting here. Right. But I would normally just put in a GN'R shirt underneath a work shirt or something like that, which I'm sure is something else other listeners can identify with for sure. Yeah, with all that, I'm assuming it's not that T-shirt. So what is your favorite Guns N' Roses piece of memorabilia?
I got two. So I've got one that my buddy Craig got me when we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, and he gave it to me as a gift. It was an autographed Axl photo from like 1991, kind of back in his heyday. So that's one of my favorites. That's on my dresser at home. And then I have I met Slash on the Apocalyptic Love. I did the meet and greet, and he autographed the GNR Lies CD that I had. So that's my favorite one. I got that framed. I got a lot of posters. I've got a lot of things, but I've got a young daughter now, and I'm afraid to put some of them up because she's at that age where she's getting into everything. So anything that can be high up, I get to look at. But yeah, those are probably my two favorite: the autographed Axl photo, and then having met Slash and have him autograph the Lies. That was really cool, and that's special because he was so down to earth, not what I expected.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Does your young daughter, does she like GNR? Have you played Sweet Child of Mine for her?
Yeah, she's only 2.5, so I did get her one of those "I Survived Guns N' Roses" shirts, which she probably wore to daycare. she just points and says, "Dinosaur, dinosaur." I'm like, yeah, sure, Zoe, dinosaur.
Said that I have the same exact shirt.
I saw that. That's a cool shirt.
It is a cool shirt. I'm the same size as your 2.5-year-old daughter. No, I mean, I think, she probably got like the kids small and I have the kids large, which is much better. And this also reminds me, which I want to say, as this is episode 295. Well, I guess I'm going to put it this way. Think about it. So if this is 295, 296 is going to be the Velveteers.
Mm-hmm.
It might be Jericho and Trail 297 or something like that. But anyway, the point being, we're approaching 300.
Right.
And I put out there, a public. I know it's not going to happen. I wanted to will it into existence to have Fernando come on the show and just talk. Just people to get to know him. And I'm not gonna, berate him like some GNR fans might do. I guess, so the point I'm thinking about this now, because you mentioned your daughter. So, I put out that tweet, and I guess want all the fans to and listeners to know this and why I came out publicly with it. Just to say, hey, those who have listened to me for years, and if you meet Fernando or if you talk to any of them on social media, and I just think there's a miscommunication or a misperception about what GNR management may, from what I've been told, may think about this podcast. So I tweeted the other day at Fernando, just to be funny. If I had a 2-year-old daughter, I would buy GNR trucks and the Sweet Child of Mine book.
Mm-hmm.
I would buy those because that's kind of like one of the criticisms Fernando gets. Instead of new music, we're getting toy trucks and books. I mean, I don't know if is that really his fault? Why there's no new music. So that's, that if anything, I want to defend the guy and defend the management. So I tweeted that out, and a listener of mine goes, "When is that book coming out?" "Oh no, it's out now. It's out." And I put the Amazon link to it, and that person bought the book, tweeted his little girl reading the book, and said, "Thank you. Thanks for Appetite for the Story, the AFD podcast, for telling me about this book," and proceeded to tag everybody in Guns N' Roses, including Fernando and all the members. So Fernando, I made you money. So
there you go. I don't have the book. I got to get it.
So look at this. This is a free infomercial too.
Right.
What else could I do? I didn't ask Richard Fortas any Guns N' Roses questions. I'm helping hawk your Sweet Child of the Mine book. What else could I do?
I don't know if there's anything.
I don't think there is. But in the meantime, I love talking to people like you, Craig. This was really cool. And again, I don't want to get you fired or you'd have to work overtime or anything like that.
Appreciate that.
It's a Friday. I want you to get out early. It is Friday, isn't it?
It is. Absolutely, it is.
I don't even know what date it is anymore. That's the problem of working from home. It all just blends together. I can only separate the days by the podcast episodes that I do.
Makes sense.
So do you have? I mean, I know you're all public figures, and that's why at the beginning I forgot to mention Phil's Instagram, the Las Vegas Phil. But do you have any sort of Instagram or anything you want public out there to talk to GNR fans, or are you just a private citizen?
Yeah, I'm just a private citizen.
Okay.
Obviously, I don't have a ton of followers. I use it. I don't really respond to a whole lot of people. I don't post a whole lot of things. I use it more for information. So, I just enjoy the podcast itself and getting to listen to fans like myself that get to share these experiences. But I don't have time for the followers. I just got a few things on my link. I really use it just for band information more than anything. And you get a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I would be. I keep saying it. If I didn't have this podcast or if I was not in this field, I think I would be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
It gets annoying. It just gets annoying. Yeah,
so you don't. It's like another job.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. But I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget because not, and Phil didn't say anything about it.
Mhm.
I just felt bad about it. I'm like, I should have plugged his Instagram. So I've definitely plugged it plenty, which sounds weird out of context. Anyway, so that does it for Craig. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
You got
Thank
it.
you for doing the podcast for us diehards out there. It's really cool that you did this with the fan reviews. If you think back, I wish we probably would have done this during the initial, not in this lifetime, but I thought this was a really cool thing to do for the fans and just get a regular everyday guy's perspective of the concert and the band, and really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. And it's fun for me too. It really is. And to meet the listeners, because there are those who are kind of vocal on social media who I thankfully have found the new Twitter at the AFD podcast or Facebook or Instagram. And I see names, and that's why I always want to get you involved. And I tell people about the upcoming guests, which, it sucks. Yeah. I had confirmation about Matt Storm. It's postponed for now, but if I didn't announce it, I wouldn't get your questions. I couldn't get you involved. And the same thing, for Jerry Cantrell. If I didn't announce it, the interview wouldn't have been as good because they wouldn't have been asking listener questions. So that's why I announce stuff on social media. But there are names I recognize, but I always like names I don't. So Craig, I think it's the first time I saw you reach out or saw your name. So it's always, because I think nobody listens. I mean, I see numbers, I know people listen, but it's always nice to put a name to the number.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm sure there's a lot more people out there that this is. Yeah, I don't get to sit here and watch on online or anything, but it's great. In the car, I listen to every episode that you put out there, so it was fun. I appreciate you doing this.
Cool. I'll let you know if I do a fan friendly or a kid friendly episode. I'll have to mute the beginning of the intro. Maybe that's my problem. The kids can't listen to the show because Axel going, "Do you know what the fuck you are?" at the beginning of this. Anyway, a story for another time. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. Obviously, keep September 10th. That is the date that you will see. You will hear the Jerry Cantrell interview. You can watch it on YouTube, but it's going to be photos and stuff because it was just a phone interview. So stay tuned for that. As soon as I find out I'm at Storm, I will let you know. I keep getting submissions for future reviews. I just got one the other day for Minnesota, which is really great. So anybody who wants to review, just like Craig did here, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, social media, email at theafdshow@gmail.com, do so. And this could be you. You could be just taking a break from work. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When will you see the next one? Well, in the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, you'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word.